Alright, I was requested to do a tutorial on parenting, childing, how to use your parents and scripts, change values of. So, we've got a lot of really good examples already existing in the tutorials themselves. So I loaded up ADS. It's got ADS, HUD, Respawn. I've also added a health and hurt box into the scene right here, as you can see. Um, to help explain this as well. So basically the way this works is I have my aim down sights and my HUD working. I do have respawning. If I use this box it hurts me, and if I use this box it heals me. This is just to show you some other relationships in the game, or the developer. Alright, so first we'll cover hurt and the hurt box and health box, because they're brand new to this scene. Alright, in the hurt box, you don't really need to start in this script. Super straightforward. Like, basically I've set an amount that it's of health it's going to give you when you use the box. And then just called it script use. That way, when the character walks up to it, there's a pick in the FPS player that looks for usable entities. And it'll put up that little hand on the screen. So once the pick and the distance is set, see how it changes to a hand? The use, then when you actually hit the E key, it uses it. And then it'll run this script. So this entity inside, like if you notice, like function start has nothing inside of that, but the entity does. This entity becomes a local value that's tied into this script, and this entity is the one that triggered the use. So that's why you could just say entity hurt. The function hurt, and then once you pass the hurt amount to that function, goes back to the entity script down to a function called hurt. So script release collision hurt. And if you see here, we have a hurt function in this player, and it tells me that I need to tell it the damage. So I've passed the self-hurt amount, which is 25, as damage to the player. And then it'll deal the damage and do all that good, like blood flies and all that stuff. Alright. So that's the way these work with an entity that's interacted. Another good example, that's kind of off topic a little bit. We can look into ADS HUD in the Respawn Manager to find really good parent and child relationships. Okay, so the player is a parent of the ADS Manager, the HUD Manager, and the Spawn Manager, which are its children. The same thing with this respawn point. The box and the wedge, which we designed this so that you can see in the editor these arrows. The box and the wedge are children of the spawn point. So if I move the spawn point or change its orientation, the children will also change with it. You could also collapse parent and child. Alright, so the player is the parent of these. So let's take a look in the player script at some stuff we've done in past tutorials. Right here is this is the respawn script. It triggers the respawn manager to act. So if self health blah blah blah, right? Here's what we really want to look at. The self entity, and then we command it to find its child. And then we tell it the name of the child. So what it's going to do is look through its children for a child of that name. And when it finds it, we told it in its script, run the respawn function with the self.entity passed through. So when we come back over here, we have a function script respawn with the player. So that self entity that got passed to it right here, which is the player itself, is now that local player. So then we could say player health, or player script health equals player script max health. So that chucks back to the player, and it says that your current health is now equal to your max health, and it'll update your health. Further down, player script camera set parent nil. So what that does is it tells this player script that in its start function it created a camera right there. It created this camera. So this camera now no longer has a parent, which it shouldn't. If it does have a parent, it messes up the looking. That's covered in the tutorial for respawning. The weapon tag, which is part of that camera, which sets the position of the weapon on the screen, is now set parent to the camera itself. So you could see in here that we're actually like changing parents. You could change children too, set child. And here we're messing, this is like some straightforward stuff that has nothing to do with parent-child. But here, we're altering the player script, its entity. So what we're actually doing isn't a scripted value, but we're changing the entity's position in the world from a child script. So this shows you a lot of examples of how a child script can even delete. Releasing is deleting in LEDWorks. We can even delete objects from the script of a parent. And then let's look at the HUD manager. I think this has the get parent command in it, if I remember right. Where is it? It should be in the start. There we go. Self.player equals self.entity get parent. In a get parent, you leave it blank because it's got a parent. It knows who's its parent. So this gets its parent and then makes its parent this player. So then we can like check the player scripts. What is the player's health? From the player script, I want its health. So that it returns it back to this script. What is its max health? And then the health factor, that's just factored the two. Here we're saying what is the player script weapons table using the current player's weapon index, clip ammo. So this current weapon index and this weapons table are both part of the FPS player. So there's handing around some data. And this ADS manager. This ADS manager, we're actually changing some of the stuff about that player script as well as the respawn was. Right here we have this player script. This time we actually said .script. So it said, what is your parent? And in its script, we're going to call that self-player script. And then self-player script, current weapon index, we're referring that, checking if it's not nil. ADS mode is a global, that's explained in the ADS tutorial. But here, we're actually changing the FOV of that camera that's in that player script. So we're altering values in the parent. So that's how you hand values back and forth between parents with and without functions. That's pretty much the explanation. If you have any other questions, let me know. If you want to see any videos done, just leave a comment. If this didn't answer your question good enough, feel free to ask again, and maybe I'll figure it out how to answer your question. But yeah, that should be how how things interact with their parent and parents interact with their children. Oh yeah, I do want to show you a call child. I did that. Self-entity find child. Yeah, I covered that. Alright, so that should be it.